On today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, the first reactions are out for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and they are nothing short of outstanding. Also, does Sony and Marvel in the potential future crossover face a problem now with Russell Crowe, considering he is both Zeus and Kraven's father? On top of all that, is DC's roadmap to success really just cutting back their budgets? We're going to discuss that, as well as this. Peter Jackson and the CEOs of Warner Brothers have been talking Lord of the Rings. Could we be seeing Peter Jackson return to Middle-earth? That and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here in our quaint little studio. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. Not just giving you our opinions, but giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or completely different from ours. I'm joined in studio today by Ray Ora.
Hey, everyone.
Sitting over here is Jonathan Voico.
Hello.
Chris Carr is here.
Hey, guys.
And most importantly, you guys are here, and here's how this show's going to go. We're going to spend the first part of the show talking about those topics we just lined down, and then in the second part of the show, we're going to take questions from our YouTube channel members. If you're listening to this podcast, you may or may not know that we also have a YouTube channel, and on that channel, we have some beloved channel members, and we ask them every day to send in some topics for us to discuss, and we'll get to those a little bit later. Before we jump into it, we just watched a new trailer drop for Zendaya's new movie, Contenders?
Challengers.
That's what it is, Challengers, which I don't know. I forget the name of the movie. But do you remember a while ago there was a tennis rom-com with Paul Bettany and Kirsten Dunst?
Yeah.
What was the name of that movie?
I can look it up.
But it reminded me a lot of that, except with threesomes. That seemed to be the big distincting.
You know, you got to reinvent things every now and then.
Yes,
so they're
You say, well, how do we make this not just another tennis movie? I know, Zendaya in a threesome. And the tickets sold out.
That was Wimbledon, yeah.
Just Wimbledon.
Oh, Wimbledon was there. I liked Wimbledon.
Plain ass Wimbledon.
I enjoyed that movie, as a matter of fact. Anyway, okay, let's dive right into it here, shall we? We're going to get things started off with this. We made a video about this morning on the YouTube channel, but, you know, we're now just about 3 weeks away from Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 coming out. And we saw our first glimpse of the movie, our first little bits of footage of it, over a year ago at CinemaCon. They showed us a little bit. And then at this year's CinemaCon, they rolled out some behind the scenes featurettes and showed us this full-blown 15-minute action sequence, which was pretty incredible, as Tom Cruise is desperately running away from Guardians of the Galaxy's Palm Clementif, who looks like a badass in this movie, and I cannot wait to watch this. Well, the first reactions have come out. And look, sufficient to say they're all glowing. They're all absolutely fantastic, with some even saying that is now their favorite Mission Impossible movie. I'm going to read just a couple of them here. This comes to us from a list on Variety, and we can bring this up, Jonathan. Joseph writes, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, this is phenomenal. Haley Atwell steals every scene she's in. This is now my favorite Mission Impossible film, with the AI being the villain. This feels like a cautionary tale. The action had my heart rate elevated. That train scene is mind-blowing. By the way, a number of the reactions that I read referred to the train sequence as being one of the most bonkers scenes they've ever seen, so I can't wait to see that. Jermaine Lucier writes, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is fantastic. Dynamite, timely story, excellent new characters, huge variety of action, and a final set piece that ranks top 2 to 3 all time for the franchise, talking about the train sequence. It gets a little dense at times, but its pace and intensity more than cover that. Kay wrote, after the insanity of the last few films, Mission Impossible 7 has a tremendous amount to live up to, but one thing I'll say now in quick reaction format, it does the best job yet of recent part 1 of 2 features in feeling like its own film while setting up for the next half. One thing's off here with Eric Davis, who writes, I had the absolute best time watching Mission Impossible, an impeccably made action film that does not stop entertaining. Each action sequence is long, crazy, and intense. The story is big and sprawling, but I like how it both felt complete and left you dying for what's to come next. The reactions to this sound absolutely crazy. The biggest negatives, if you can call them negatives, that I read were a couple of them with some of the standard things we heard, like in Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse, like felt a little like a part one of a thing, which I don't know why that's a problem for some people, but that was one of them. Some said that the story gets so complex sometimes that maybe it feels a little bit dense. I heard a couple of comments like that, but that's just the rare spattering here and there. Overall, people are saying this is a great story, that the characters, and especially the new ones they bring in, they say are fantastic. The action, as we've come to expect in a Mission Impossible film, apparently is top notch. I'll tell you what, I've never been the biggest Mission Impossible fan because I kind of started off the way I started off with Fast and the Furious. I didn't really like the first couple of Mission Impossible movies. I mean, I didn't hate them, but I didn't really love them either, but they grew on me. And especially once you got into 4, 5, 6, I mean, then I really started to fall in love with them at that point. And I am now at the point that I'm really, really excited for Dead Reckoning Part 1. These first reactions are great. Chris, you were at both the last couple of CinemaCons. You saw the footage they showed us over a year ago. You saw the big scene they showed us now.
Yeah.
Where has your anticipation level been for this particular movie? And now that we're seeing the first reactions coming out, did they resonate with where you thought they would be? Has this increased your hype for the movie? I don't know. What are you thinking about?
It's definitely increased my hype because seeing the stunt work that we saw, the behind the scenes looks at CinemaCon, and the sneak peek of what we saw at CinemaCon, I think it was 15 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, all of that was just amazing, adrenaline fueled, incredible stunt work that I got very, very excited about. Tom Cruise always delivers that, though. And to be honest, I'm not the biggest Mission Impossible fan either. I kind of fell off of these. And so I do need to do a little bit of catching up before we go, because I don't know anything about Rebecca Ferguson in this. I saw one with Simon Pegg in it. Has he been in more than one at this point? Yeah. So I've only seen one of his. So I need to catch up a lot. But these reviews have made me very, very excited, especially everyone talking about how McQuarrie's kind of, view and meditation on AI and what it does and everything seems like such a timely thing to be putting into as a plot point in a movie, but also that it's being done well. I'm very excited to hear that, because a lot of times you hear that artificial intelligence is going to be a talking point in a film and it's just some gobbledygook that doesn't make sense, and it's more of a, a MacGuffin than an actual interesting plot point. So I'm glad to hear that works out. The moment, though, that I found out Haley Atwell was in this.
Right. And by the way, she's gotten a lot of praise in a lot of the reactions. I've been saying she kind of steals the movie, some people say.
And that's what makes me the most excited, because when I saw she was going to be in this, I went, ooh, okay, that does pique my interest. Loved her in the scene we saw and everything, too. So her stealing the show in all of these reviews gets me even more excited. I definitely need to watch more of these so I can go into the theater fully prepared, know all about the story, because I need to see more of those face masks coming off and big car scenes and everything.
You know what's funny is that, I mean, look, one of the last CinemaCon, a little over a year ago, one that we were at, they did this big, huge, felt like 20-minute long expose about the big motorcycle off the cliff stunt, right? They did basically a mini documentary about how they pulled that stunt together, and it's really Tom Cruise driving a motorcycle off a cliff, and he did it dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times to get it absolutely perfect and all that kind of stuff. But there's a temptation, I think, to look at these Mission Impossible films and say, what's the gimmick this time? Ooh, Tom Cruise is going to scale the outside of the world's tallest building. Ooh, Tom Cruise is literally going to hang off the side of an airplane that's taking off. Ooh, Tom Cruise is going to fly a helicopter. Ooh, Tom Cruise is going to dive off a cliff. But here's the really great thing about all these things. They never feel like gimmicks in the movie. Every time Tom Cruise does one of these absolute ridiculous stunts, it fits seamlessly in with the story they're telling. And it goes beyond Mission Impossible too. Like that Mummy movie he did, which I don't think is the biggest bag of trash that a lot of people think it is. I don't think it's necessarily good.
So many issues with that movie, but mostly because of my own career.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's good. I'm not going to say it's a good movie.
Yeah, we don't understand it either, Google.
But here's the thing. There was a stunt in that where they're in an airplane that's supposedly going down, right? And you see them in this Tom Cruise and this girl in this airplane, like flying around the ceiling and on the walls of the airplane. They literally took a plane up to the edge of space where they had no gravity so they could perform this stuff in zero G. Didn't use visual effects to do it. But again, something that could come across just like a big gimmick. What's the stunt that Tom Cruise is going to do this time? But it fits perfectly well in with the movie. And I think that's been part of the magic sauce of the Mission Impossible franchise is that, yeah, big action sequences, but they always feel like they're completely interwoven with the story that's happening. I always say that action without narrative purpose is just visual noise.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise's action is never visual noise. It's always part of the story. And I love that. So yeah, hearing good things coming out of the reactions for Mission Impossible. Cannot wait. 3 weeks away, guys. Just 3 weeks away. All right. With that down, let's talk about this, shall we? Yesterday, the newest trailer of the Sony Marvel verse, I guess you could call it, the one that includes Venom and Venom 2 and Morbius and others that are coming. Madam Web is coming.
There's a Madam Web movie?
I bet you didn't hear about that. Shock and surprise. So they dropped the first trailer online for Kraven the Hunter. Now, they showed us this trailer at CinemaCon last month with Aaron Taylor Johnson doing a little bit of an introduction first, saying, of course this movie's fucking rated R. What's Kraven going to do? Talk them to death? And then they showed us a trailer that was very, very rated R. Mm-hmm. Now, the trailer they dropped online yesterday, I would say is about 85% of the same trailer that we saw with a few extra things and a few things moved around a little bit. I thought it was a very, very good trailer, but also raised some very big red flags for me. So it's like, okay, this looks great, but it looks great in the way that the Morbius trailers looked great, and we know how that turned out, so I've got these red flags going off. Be that as it may. The topic of the day, though, is Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe, who I believe right now is the best actor in the world who's currently working. I mean, obviously, the best actor of all time, to me, is Daniel Day-Lewis. He's the best there is, best there was, best there ever will be, undisputed GOAT. But he's retired. So to me, the best pure actor working today, for my money, is Russell Crowe. And he appears as Kraven's father in the trailer. Now, this is where it gets interesting. And I saw a couple of thought pieces pop up on this over the last 24 hours. Is that there's been a lot of talk about the possibility over the last couple of years that at some point, this Sony Marvelverse and Marvel's MCU are going to definitively cross over. Now, they played with that a little bit at the end of Venom 2. Yeah, they played with it at the end of Venom 2. And at the end credit of, was it No Way Home? Was the end credit for No Way Home? Where Venom, at the end of Venom 2, is watching TV and he pulls through some kind of vortex and he looks at the TV and he's seeing, Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which we know is in the MCU. And then in the post-credits of, I think, the Spider-Man movie, we see Tom Hardy there. Yeah. And he basically has a quick conversation with Danny Rojas and then gets sucked back in through a portal and goes back to his own universe. So they've already kind of done little hints about maybe crossing them over, but now they have a Russell Crowe problem. Because unlike Gemma Chan, who was in Captain Marvel, but she was a complete alien maked up character, so you would never recognize her, and who is now also the lead of the Eternals, that's not really a problem because in one role she's completely made up over. Zeus in Thor looks like Russell Crowe.
That's because he chooses to look like Russell Crowe.
That's true. That's a very good point, Jonathan. He chooses to look like Russell Crowe.
But the dialects are so different that he's using.
I don't care what he says. I love Russell Crowe's accent in the movie. Are either of them this? You are not invited to the orgy.
That's how it feels.
I love him in that movie. Anyway, I didn't overall love the movie, but I loved him in the movie. And of course, it's very much Russell Crowe as Kraven's father. So the question becomes, does this kind of shut the door? Like, does this tell us that Sony and Marvel have thought better of it over the years? That, you know, we can never really cross these worlds over. They talked about it. They dipped their little baby toe in it for a bit. But Chris, let me ask you, does Sony casting Russell Crowe as Kraven's dad, does that definitively say, yeah, they've probably pretty much given up on this since he's already a character in the MCU? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't think it means they're giving up on anything. We have seen other actors appear in this too. And I know they're also from Netflix shows, right? We saw Alfred Woodard. We saw, oh my gosh, Mahershala Ali, right? Both in the Luke Cage show. Obviously, we've learned that is not necessarily canon.
Right.
And so that's not the same as appearing in two different kind of Marvel movies. But I feel like because of all the multiverse of it all, you can explain it away. You know, I don't think that it's a glaring issue right now. Should everybody cross the streams, then it's an issue. I always thought though too, and I know you don't do the ex-actor thing, but I always thought Russell Crowe was kind of an odd choice here to be the dad. For me, I know he's much older, but based on Aaron Taylor Johnson, I would go with somebody like Timothy Dalton. I would go with with Rafer Joseph Fiennes, Nikolaj from Game of Thrones.
Waldo Rotten.
Yes. Yes.
You think he's old enough to play?
He's 52. And then Russell Crowe's only, 58?
Yeah.
He's under 60. Timothy Dalton's 77, so I know
would go
that's
with Timothy
older.
Dalton.
Timothy Dalton, though, I think would have been amazing because they look like each other. He's so good. He chews up so much scenery when he gets to be a villain. And that's a judgment I'm making before I even see this movie, obviously. But that was more of the issue was, oh, he's going to be his dad? Okay. Interesting choice. But I don't think it's a absolute nail in the coffin that this is going to be a movie. We've already, cast judgment on it. That said, I thought this trailer was a little whack, and it gave me big Morbius vibes, especially once we got to Spider Lion, right? Of just like the blood goes into him, and
the buff lion. That thing was thick.
Yeah, that is the most buff lion. I've watched a lot of nature documentaries. That is the most buff lion I've ever seen.
It looked like a lion ate a lion.
It did, though. I mean, it has to have some kind of like weird mutagen thing happening. Otherwise, if it's just, hey, if you have some lion's blood get in you, you're a superhero.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the trailer did not give us everything.
No.
I mean, right, there's obviously something in the context here. And this is a departure from the comic book origins of Kraven, where he got his enhanced abilities like through elixirs and stuff like that in the comics. In the movie, it's clearly going to be something different. So there's got to be something special about the lion. Yeah, there's got to be something special about the lion.
Well, the lion escaped from Morbius' lab.
Well, that explains. It's a vampire lion.
Do you think he also hid that lion as well as he hid those bats? Because I love that reveal in Morbius. What? All these bats are here in your giant Batman Begins tube?
Is that a lion?
How did these get here?
End credits.
Oh God! I mean but that's why I got red flags.
Yeah.
If you remember, I liked the Morbius trailers.
You did.
I actually thought they looked good. And then we saw the movie.
You all gave me so much crap for thinking it didn't look good. Just saying.
I don't think it ever looked good. That was just
Okay.
I thought it looked.
You and Rob
but
were
then again,
both
I've
like,
seen
"It
lots of
looks great."
trailers that look good that turn out to be bad movies. And
Did you guys
maybe
go opening night? Hey, I'm Michael.
to Morbius?
Yeah.
Of course I went to
Like
opening
the
night.
first showing, right?
I went to the very first showing.
You're like front row seat with your shirt on and
No.
poster. Oh,
no, that part didn't happen.
I was at home cozy.
I wore my 30 Seconds to Mars shirt. Is that the name of the band?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's his band.
30 Seconds to Mars, or is it 20 seconds? I don't even know.
I joined
you
his
put on
cult
that
right
damage
before,
tattoo on your forehead.
The damage tattoo is
committed.
already
You're leveled
morbid
out,
time,
baby.
ready
I
to
sat in
go.
a booth next to him at 101 Cafe back in the day. So there was that. That's my link to Morbius.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I
You
had
seem cool.
lunch with what's
Jared
the
Leto?
fucker's name? What's his name?
Jared
Jared
Leto?
Leto?
Yeah. I had
Oh
lunch with
yeah.
Jared Leto. What's the
You'd
name?
enjoy knowing that you could refer to him as that.
That fucker.
That fucker.
That's-
I got to have lunch with him.
He's just
at-
another.
at this. It was a Dallas Buyers Club award campaign luncheon that they did. So they invited like 20 journalists, and they had Jared Leto there, who was of course nominated before he won, and they had Matthew McConaughey was there, and stuff like that. Really nice, pleasant guy. I didn't mean to refer to him as a fucker for nothing like that, but a very nice guy,
Sure, he
very down to
engages in the
earth
act.
dude to talk with. Didn't mention joining his cult or anything like that.
Shame.
He's like, yeah,
You could have had some fun times on an island, apparently.
pretty cool.
They get really good deals on flights.
He does. All right. Hey guys, listen, we still got a couple things we're going to talk about here, including, is the secret to DC finally getting some sex actually sex? Having success? That's the secret to
$1 billion.
DC finally having some success actually lean into... I am never going to be
I'm just so
allowed to
glad
forget
DC
that.
finally lost its virginity. It's great.
With sex.
I hope it was special, though.
In slashing their budgets. On top of that, the CEOs of Warner Brothers have been meeting with Peter Jackson, talk a little bit of Lord of the Rings. We'll get to those in just a second. But before we do, we're going to thank one of the sponsors of our show here today, our friends at Rocket Money. Guys, we want to thank a sponsor of this video, Rocket Money. The average person has around 12 paid subscriptions. Think about that. If you think you're only subscribed to a handful of services, you might want to double check. With Rocket Money, you can quickly identify and cancel all of your unwanted subscriptions. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you so you can stop paying for the ones you don't want and don't even use. Simply find the subscription you don't want and press cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. No more long hold times with customer service or tedious emailing back and forth. Rocket Money makes canceling subscriptions as easy as the click of a button. My wife Ann and I moved out of Burbank 2 years ago, and one of the first things I discovered when I loaded up Rocket Money was that I was still paying for a gym membership I haven't even been to in Burbank in 2 years. So stop throwing away your money. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/Campea. That's rocketmoney.com/Campea. rocketmoney.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Rocket Money for saving me money and for being a sponsor of today's episode. All right. With that down, guys, let's get on to this. You know, we've talked a lot in the last number of days about how the last 4 or 5 DC movies have not just struggled at the box office, but hard faceplant flopped. The one that came closest to breaking even, I think, was probably Black Adam. That didn't even make $400 million. Of course, Shazam 2 couldn't even make $150 million. Birds of Prey made $200 million worldwide, so on and so forth. And now we just had The Flash, a great movie in my opinion, but really come out of the gate badly.
UK audiences are really liking it, so that's yay for
That's
them.
$20.
That's nice.
I mean, North American audiences are loving it. I mean, it's got like a high 80% audience rating with North American Eye, but ain't nobody going to go see it. It only made $55 million opening weekend.
That little drop in the box office bucket from the UK wasn't great.
Yeah,
but it's
no,
doing
was it
well
like
there. I feel
$8
like
million
it deserves
maybe?
credit.
But it's lion's blood drop.
It's lion's blood dropping in
Oh no!
to the box office for
No one's
DC
safe.
Sex. So here's the question though. Is the answer to DC's box office woes simply dropping the budgets significantly of their movies? And that is the topic of today's Mint Mobile Hotline question of the day. Listen, if you guys have a topic or question you'd like to hear on our podcast or see us make a video about on our YouTube channel, and you'd like to hear the dulcet tones of your own voice, go ahead and call our Mint Mobile Hotline anytime 24/7 at 951-268-4259. And once again, today's topic is just about, hey, maybe DC just needs to drop their budgets. Check it out.
John, Phil Lynch calling. Saw The Flash. Loved it. It flopped. Sucks. It is what it is. Look, I mean, I see no solution for DC besides lowering these budgets. I mean, they have to lower budgets. They're not on Marvel's level of billion-dollar box office time and time again at the box office. They never really have that. They need to lower the budgets for these. Look, what do you think? I mean, they need to leave themselves open to profitability, because if we keep going like The Flash and Black Adam, as somebody that loves the DC IP more than just the movies, I'm concerned that we might not be seeing as many DC movies down the line if they keep with this trend. What do you think? Thanks.
All right, Phil, thank you so much for that succinct, to the point message. Loved it.
The greatest message.
I
we've
love
ever
that one.
received.
He's a straight shooter.
Straight shooter.
I like Phil.
Loved it. Flopped. Sucks. Whatever. I love that. That was great. It's like, boom, no wasted words. Okay, so it raises an interesting question, though, about, look, I've been on my soapbox for years that Hollywood in general needs to reel in the spending on a lot of these movies. Their spending has just gotten way out of control on a lot. Fast 10 cost $340 million to make. Really? I mean, that's just utterly preposterous.
Well, you got family. And you got
family and then cars for the
Duct tape.
family. So here's the thing. I believe for a long time they need to cut the budgets on these. But is the answer to DC's financial woes simply a matter of cutting their budgets? I mean, yes, if Black Adam had cost only $100 million to make, Black Adam would have been profitable. But can you make Black Adam for $100 million? Well, that I'm not really sure. And is that the pathway forward? Is that the path to success for DC moving forward as we're getting ready to head into 2025 with the DC reboot? Is that the option? Just slash budgets? I'm going to propose the answer to that is no. That's not the answer for two reasons. Reason number one, it's basically saying you give up, right? If you're DC, you have to believe that you have the IP and the history and the generational fandom and the stories and the belief that this property can be every bit as big, if not bigger and more successful, or at the very minimum as successful as the Marvel properties have been. You have Batman, you have Superman, you have Wonder Woman, you have The Flash. I mean, you have all these incredible iconic characters, and you've got to believe that these properties can be every bit as relevant, as big, and as successful as your counterparts up the street at Marvel. You have to believe that. Because if you don't, why are you making the movies in the first place? If you don't believe that you're on that level, just don't make the movies. Just don't make them. I'd rather you do what David Zaslav did with Batgirl. Just pull the plug on it. Don't put him out. You don't believe in Blue Beetle? Pull the plug. You don't believe in what you're doing? The answer is not slashing, because if you just start slashing your budgets, what you're ultimately doing is, well, first of all, I do agree they should rein in their budgets a little bit, yes, but don't just go, well, we're going to make superhero movies for $75 million, or we're going to make superhero movies for $100 million. We're going to make big blockbuster entertainment, and I'm sorry, but today you can't do that. So you've got to have a core belief that you can. However, and this goes back to something we talked about earlier today on our YouTube channel, you do have to acknowledge that what you're doing right now isn't working. We did this video earlier today, actually, where we put up the top 10 list. Chris, you would have liked this. We put up a top 10 list. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna bring it up here right now just so you can see it.
Okay.
That's the wrong one. This is the one I wanted to bring up. So the top 10 MCU movies, box office, versus the top 10 box office DCEU movies. I want you to notice something. Let's compare the number 10 MCU movie and the number 10 DCU movie. The number 10 Marvel movie is Captain Marvel that made $1.1 billion. The number 10 DC movie is Suicide Squad that made $168 million. There is only one film on DC's top 10, and that's Aquaman at number 1, that made $1.14 billion. That would even make it onto the MCU's top 10 list, and it would be in number 9. And the bottom five MCU films of all time, including like The Incredible Hulk and stuff like that, bottom 5 MCU box office films of all time would all make it onto the DCU's top 10. That's, I mean, if that isn't screaming at you that what you've been doing has not worked, nothing else will convince you. So what if you're now James Gunn and you're heading in to 2025, you're restarting this DCEU, you're starting from scratch, or for the most part from scratch, with Superman Legacy. Is the answer to slash the budget on it? I say no. Because if you're going to do that, just shut the doors. Just close it down. I say you go big. Go with not a $340 million movie like Fast X, but go with a big $200 million fabulous Superman movie. And I said this yesterday, I'll say it again. And understand you're going to lose money on the first one. What? Yeah. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, 2 years before this movie ever comes out, the first Superman movie, the first movie of the DCU is probably going to lose money. And that's okay. You want to know why it's going to lose money? Because DC's reputation is shit. It's garbage. They just put out this Flash movie with Michael Keaton returning that everybody got excited about. It made $55 million opening weekend. They put out a pretty decent Shazam 2 movie, couldn't even make $150 million. You put out a Black Adam movie with the biggest movie star in the world that they built up for 15 years, couldn't even make $400 million. You put out Birds of Prey with Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, barely was able to crack $200 million. Nobody wants to go see DC movies anymore. And that's not going to be fixed overnight with just one movie. What one movie can do, though, is start the road to recovery. They're going to have to lay the foundation with the first one or two movies just to show the world again, hey, DC is back. This is a whole new game. We've got, in sports terms, we've got a totally different team. And we are about winning now. And yeah, the first movie's going to lose money. And they should prepare for that and understand that and be okay with it. And then the second movie might also lose a little bit of money. But guess what? Winning cures everything. You put out a great Superman movie, and then you follow it up with another great movie, you will be on the road to success. Look, when Disney launched Disney Plus, they understood, and they said it publicly, that was going to take them, I think, 5 years? They might have said, I might be off on the number of years. I think it was 5 years before they were going to be able to break even on it. They understood when we get this thing rolling, it's going to cost us money. We're going to lose money. But the idea is we do a good enough job. We win over the consumers and we're going to get to a place of profitability. It took Netflix streaming over a decade to get to that point. And that's the place that James Gunn and DCU find themselves in now. The answer is not to slash your budgets. You've got to come out in 2025 with Superman Legacy swinging for the fences. You got to come out balls to the wall, everything you got, leave nothing on the field, every sports cliche I can come up with. That's what you've got to come out with. Leave it all there. Blood, sweat, tears, and your budget. $200 million. Go. And understand that what you're doing with that first movie is laying a foundation. And then you go from there. So no, I do not believe the answer is to reduce budgets. Rein them in, be more reasonable, yes, but slashing budgets, because if all you're doing that is say, well, then we got to make this movie for $3,000 in order to break even. Well, then don't make the movie. Chris, you heard the question.
Yeah.
Spending is out of control. Yes. Is there something to be said here for maybe DC's future approach saying, we got to make these movies for $100 million. We got to make these movies for $120 million. I don't know. How do you approach this?
I definitely think you need to be mindful of the budget and reel it in. I mean, Jonathan, you brought this up earlier this week about how James Gunn typically is under budget. And I think one of his greatest assets, aside from him being an incredibly creative mind, is that he has a trauma background. You know,
Yeah.
He worked for Lloyd Kaufman on these shoestring budgets, creating really, really interesting, wild, gross films. And I think that kind of mindset has stuck with him of, I can do a lot with a little. And you see it in his work still, of being able to do practical effects well, of utilizing comedy well, of utilizing just single shots really well to further his storytelling. He does a lot of what incredible graphic novelists do, where you have just an exterior shot, right? A lone cabin in the snow with somebody standing outside with a blood puddle next to him. You know everything from one shot, and you
Right.
only had to do one panel then that way, right? He thinks in that kind of way, and I think that's a great asset to him. And I think with him on the creative side of things, doing things, I think that he'd be able to help encourage that kind of mindfulness with budgets. Now, if it does come down to, I want everyone to start making $50,000 movies, that's problematic.
Right.
The big thing is that you want quality over quantity. And this, for some reason, is something that every now and then people fight me about of, no, we want both. I'm sure you do, but usually one has to give, right? I would love it if I was getting incredible, wonderful comic book movies every single month for the rest of my life. I'd be such a happy camper. But that's not particularly reasonable because it takes a while to make movies. You have to pay people what they're worth. Special effects don't just come out of nowhere. You got to have a team that builds them. So I think they need to also really look at what they're doing. I think it's very ambitious to have this huge tied-in universe to comics, to video games, to TV, to film. But I think they need to be very mindful moving forward as to who the major players are in all of that. Because while I'm really excited to see some B-list folks in there, some B-side kind of comics that a lot of people don't know about, you do need to introduce your heavy hitters, and you just need to be mindful about the stories you're going to tell and tell them effectively. That's the bigger focus, is the storytelling.
Ray, let me ask you. You just saw Flash again. To you, it's your favorite DCU movie.
Yep.
What do you think, if I were to put you on the spot, like I'm doing right now,
Oh,
and
yeah,
say-
the best decision maker here? Okay,
and
let's
say,
go.
if James Gunn were to give you a call right now and say, Ray, what bit of advice can you give me about what we need to do to right the DC ship? Like, we just looked at those charts, right? About how, like, the DCU has from its inception underperformed. Going into a clean slate reboot, what would you tell James is some stuff he's got to focus on?
I hate to say it, but I've said it before. I think the Superman movie is more important than we all, like, for me at least, than a lot of, there's a lot riding on the Superman movie.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you talk about foundation. If the foundation is poo-poo, the house is going to fall apart.
Oh yeah, they're dead. Look what happened to the dark universe, the monster universe that Universal is going to do, right? They had all these plans. So Johnny Depp's going to be Invisible Man. Javier Bardem is going to be, I don't know, Wolfman, whatever it is. We got John, and then they came out of the gate with the Mummy, and it crapped the bed, and the whole thing died before it even started. So you're right about that, but the importance of the foundational movie.
And for me personally, if he can make me care about a character, it's not really one of my favorites. Like, Superman has never been one of my favorites. Henry Cavill made the character
alive for you.
Yeah, or like made me notice this superhero.
Right.
I was always a Spider-Man guy. But if he can make me care about this character, then it should be smooth sailing from there, like with everyone else. Because Batman's cool to me, Wonder Woman. Yeah, if he could start off with a bang, it would be very good for the DC universe, I think.
But I mean, the other thing you mentioned too, I mean,
and who cares about the budget on Superman? You go all in,
go big.
But, because
but you're right. Like with there is so much riding on this movie, because again, I don't want to say it's an apples to apples comparisons, but again, we look at that dark universe. They came out on the wrong foot, and it killed all their plans. Also, going back a few more years, remember the Aragon Dragon movie, the book series?
Yeah.
I actually like that
Dragons?
movie.
They had
book series.
plans, they had signed contracts, they were going to make a trilogy of films, and they came out of the gate and made a real shitty first movie, and all of a sudden that died and it was gone. And I'm not saying the DCU dies and disappears if Superman Legacy doesn't come out, but I'll tell you what. Remember I said, if they lay a good foundation, within 2 movies, they can get right on the right path. If they come out of the gate with a bad Superman Legacy movie, it may take them 4 or 5 years to get the audience back on board.
Did you ever?
You can't start weak.
I'm sorry. Did you ever tell us how you felt about a younger Superman? Because that might be it, right? We're getting
I'm totally great with a younger
Okay.
Superman.
Yeah,
I have no problem. I mean, I don't want Superboy. I don't want Smallville the movie. But they were saying it's going to be a Clark Kent who's already working at the Daily Planet in the earlier years of his hero career. I'm totally good with that. Get in a Superman that can be Superman for the next 15, 20 years, who can be the next Hugh Jackman sort of character, right? I'm all for it if they can make it work. But I'm telling you, the pressure on James Gunn to knock this out of the park is absolutely there. All right. Guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? It should go without saying, I think you get into a circle with any group of big film fans anywhere, and you bring up greatest movies of all time, the name Lord of the Rings is going to come up many times.
As it should.
As it very well should. Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, maybe not as much Peter Jackson's The Hobbit, but the Lord of the Rings, and I think The Hobbit is better than people remember. I mean, it had its weaknesses, absolutely, but they're going to bring up Lord of the Rings. Peter Jackson's absence has been decried by many people, especially going into the Lord of the Rings series that they did on Amazon. The fact that Peter Jackson wasn't involved with it, a lot of people point to that as maybe being one of the big culprits. Well, a report came out the other day, and I had first read it in Deadline, that just like the new Warner Brothers co-CEOs, that's Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdy, they are the ones that David Zaslav appointed as the CEOs of the Warner Brothers studio. They made comments the other day about, look, the old Warner Brothers screwed up the relationship with Christopher Nolan. We want Christopher Nolan back. And they said that to grease the wheels a bit, they sent him a check in the millions. Sent Christopher Nolan just a check out of nowhere, just a check for a bunch of millions of dollars, just to kind of, prepare the runway, if you will, of trying to woo Christopher Nolan back to the Warner Brothers camp, saying, hey, we're a different Warner Brothers. We're not the same ones that were under AT&T. We're a completely different Warner Brothers. Well, apparently, they're taking the same approach with Peter Jackson. Because according to that report I read in Deadline, actually, let me read this here. Warner Brothers CEO Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdy are hoping for another Lord of the Rings movie from Peter Jackson. Jackson directed 6 Lord of the Rings movies. He helmed the original trilogy, which premiered from 2001 to 2003, and he helmed the Hobbit prequel trilogy, which came out from 2012 to 2014. By the way, lest you forget, Guillermo del Toro was supposed to direct those films. Since then, the franchise has seen The Lord of the Rings of Power, a Prime Video TV series, but there's not been any movies. Now, DeLuca and Abdy, get this, went to New Zealand to reestablish the studio's connection to Peter Jackson. Since Jackson finished his work on the Hobbit trilogy, he has co-written Mortal Engines, which was horrible, by the way, and directed the documentaries They Shall Not Grow Old and The Beatles Get Back. He's not been super busy. As a guy who, coming out of Lord of the Rings, was considered to be maybe the next one destined to be on the Mount Rushmore of all-time great directors, I think The Hobbit, his experience on The Hobbit really took a lot out of him. Okay, but I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this new Warner Brothers under DeLuca and Abdy, who seem to be making their first priority, we need to undo the damage that the AT&T Warner Brothers did. And they seem to be going on this let's kiss and make up tour by going out to guys like Christopher Nolan, obviously now reaching back out to Peter Jackson. And I got to tell you, I love what they're doing. And by the way, this isn't the first overture. There have been reports. Well, there was a confirmed story that, Warner Brothers Discovery head honcho David Zaslav was seen having lunch with Christopher Nolan, trying to get things ready there. And now Peter Jackson. And from everything we've been hearing, a lot of whispers about them going out and meeting with a lot of people about being very, very nice to Denis Villeneuve, who, remember, he was hyper pissed off when AT&T's Warner Brothers did their day and date release strategy with Dune that nearly made him run out of town. So I want to talk, there's 2 things here that I want to talk about. Number one is this strategy by DeLuca and Abdy seeming to be to get out there, reestablish Warner Brothers' reputation as being the most friendly studio for filmmakers, which AT&T's Warner Brothers completely destroyed that reputation. So they seem to be going out and doing that. So that philosophy, number one, but also, whoo, the testicles get tingly thinking out the idea of Peter Jackson coming back to direct another Lord of the Rings movie.
Not sponsored by Manscaped.
Sponsored by Manscaped. Come on. Tell me that doesn't get the blood rushing a little bit. The idea, the very notion,
lion blood,
not there.
The possibility of Peter
blood.
Jackson coming
right
back to direct another Lord of the Rings film. Tell me that's not one of the most exciting things you can possibly think of as a film
Our
fan.
jobs depend on
and
it.
also, what effect does this have on the actual series too? The Rings of Power. Would it have any?
I don't
Probably
think it would
nothing.
have any.
Yeah.
Probably zero effect.
None.
That's a different.
That would be a
whole
totally different thing.
yeah.
That's an Amazon thing. That's totally separate.
It'd just be another point for people to be like, see, this is better.
Yeah. So
okay.
it would be something completely different. Now, there's nothing in the reports that said about any progress made, anything like that. Just that. And by the way, if you're CEO, one of the most famous historic film studios in the world, when you want to meet with somebody, you get your assistant to call them and tell them you'd like them to come in and meet with you. Not DeLuca and Abdy. They got on a plane, flew 14 hours to New Zealand so they could sit down and meet with Peter Jackson. I mean, if anything shows that you're dead serious, that the CEOs of the studio will fly to you if nothing else, that's got to make you feel good. Even if you're Peter Jackson, that's going to make you feel good. So, Chris, let me ask you. I think two very big things. What do you think about DeLuca and Abdi's seemingly priority set of reestablishing that long-held reputation of Warner Brothers being filmmaker friendly that unfortunately got trashed under AT&T?
Yeah.
And what do you think about the possibility of maybe Peter Jackson saying, hey, listen, I've been out of the game for a while. Let's revisit Middle Earth. I don't know. What do you think about both of these possibilities?
Abdi and DeLuca are doing the baby comeback tour.
Yeah.
That is what they have been on a kick for. And, you know, they talked about this in an interview recently, too, of giving their filmmakers the white glove treatment. And that's what we're seeing. It's not enough to send a fruit basket. It's not enough to get on a Zoom call. You need to go in person to talk to these filmmakers and really show that you want them to come back to your studio and really make a case for it. And that kind of effort, I think, is a really, really smart thing to do, too. Because this isn't like, hey, would you do me a favor? Hey, let's work on this small project together. No, you're talking about going into a franchise together, building films together that cost millions of dollars. So I think that kind of approach is very, very smart, especially given how AT&T's regime treated all of their filmmakers, of doing day and date, of honestly prioritizing the wrong things. I know it's the movie business, but at the end of the day, you got to think about the movies themselves, too, and they are art. Yes, it's art that we buy, but it still has some prestige to it. There is still a way to handle an artist that I think Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca really, really understand. And I appreciate that about them. I enjoy them so much. I think they're always a delight at CinemaCon. I think they're just wonderful people. I want to get a beer with them. I like them. When it comes to Peter Jackson revisiting Middle Earth, first of all, in my humble opinion, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is perfect. No notes from Chris Carr.
No notes.
No notes. Chef's kiss. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. I love those movies so much, and they hold up so well still, too.
I just did a rewatch a few months ago, and it's like, yup, today. I mean, a few visual effects here and there that are 20 years old, yes, but it's like,
Sure.
holds up perfectly.
But so much of it, because they went practical effects, holds up so beautifully. And that's one of the things that's an issue with The Hobbit, is that so many things feel uncanny and they feel dated because of the pressure and the use of CGI. Whereas everything in Lord of the Rings, for the most part, done practically, still looks the way it was intended to look.
Yeah.
Those films are incredible. Now, if there are other stories in there that Peter Jackson wants to dive into, give us some Tom Bombadil, do some really fun stuff in there, I think that could be really cool. There is, I think our movie-going audiences now, too, particularly those who are very, very into Lord of the Rings, are much more critical now. And that's fair that they are. I think it's okay. But, you know, things like the Lord of the Rings series, there was immediate hate before we even saw any footage. And granted, if you didn't like that show after you watched the full season, I totally get it. I totally understand. I had a lot of problems with it. I know our after shows became kind of a bummer because it was so much of, gosh, I don't like this show.
I mean, I was telling John the other day, that was like the most stressful after show because we had to search for anything we liked about it.
Well, and anytime I did say something I genuinely liked, people would be like, whatever, Chris, you're a liar. I'm like, no, it's
we weren't
just my
lying. It was just
stupid
what we were
opinion.
also-
I don't know.
Yeah, no, listen, I thought that, it was my number one most anticipated show for about 4 years.
Same.
And at the end of the day, I liked the show, but it was nowhere near as good as what I was wanting it to be. Like, for every one episode that would come out that I go, wow, that was actually, I could see the potential in this show now with this one episode, and then the next one would follow up and be rather weak. And it was
Exactly.
just,
It was
there's lots of
fine.
lessons they can learn and improve upon,
They
hopefully, for
certainly
season
can.
2.
And you know, those movies, right, I think they're so wonderful and so great. And if Peter Jackson revisits and does something that is more akin to The Hobbit, that isn't completely something I'm in love with, I still have those movies to fall back on.
Right.
It's not like it erases them. I just hope that if he revisits Middle Earth, it's in a way that is fun and exciting for him, and that he really leans on that use of practical effects again. I love the creature work. I love puppetry. I love all of those things when they get to come into play for creatures. And I really think that's what they should focus on should he come back. I'd love to see it, though. You know I'm obsessed. My studio's named after Lord of the Rings. My dog's named after Lord of the Rings. Gimli's bar mitzvah is this Sunday. He turns 13. So excited.
I'm a dog
really
guy. Even
peak-
that's a bit much for me.
Older in life, don't they?
They really do.
At 13.
Gimli becomes a
13.
man.
That's when he finally
Officially
becomes a man. Which is really mean after you've neutered him. Like, that just seems cruel to throw that.
You can say the same thing about Logan.
No!
all
Not
right.
neutered at all. He's own man. I don't think things are in the Campea house, but equal
All right,
opportunity players
guys.
here.
With that all down, we are now going to move on and start taking questions from our YouTube channel members who've been firing them in. We're going to get through as many as we can. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second here and thank a couple of more sponsors of today's episode, our friends at BetterHelp, and of course, my mobile service provider, Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to thank a sponsor of this video, BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. Think about it. The person you were 5 years ago is not the exact person that you are today. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way that we do until we talk things through. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. And guys, striving for better mental health is something we should all aspire to. I've talked about this before, but when somebody goes to the gym, we applaud them for getting out there to improve their physical health. Well, it's about time that we start looking at mental health the same way, not just by encouraging the people around us to look into therapy, but by also taking the step to take care of our own mental health as well. So listen, if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a short questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/Campea today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Campea. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. From the gas pump to the grocery store, your utility bills and favorite streaming services, inflation is everywhere. Seriously, make it stop. Thankfully, there's one company out there that's giving you a much needed break. It's Mint Mobile. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know that ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've been saving almost 70% a month over my old phone plan. For people looking for extra savings this year, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. By going online only and eliminating the traditional cost of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at BetterHelp and Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode. Remember, guys, when you go and check out and support our sponsors, you're actually supporting us. So if you look down in the description, you'll find links and promo codes to all of today's sponsors. And once again, thank you to Rocket Money, BetterHelp, and Mint Mobile. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to those questions from our YouTube channel members. Chris, what do we got up here first?
From Baggio Blues, sorry. Hey, good morning from the Philippines.
Hey, Kamustika.
With the influx of fantasy adaptations, is there a particular fantasy IP, game, or book that you would like to get adapted to TV or movies, assuming it's done well? I would love any Brandon Sanderson story to be adapted.
Not really. I don't have a lot. Like there was, what was the author's first name? Salvatore wrote a whole bunch of fantasy novels back in the 90s and 2000s. I want to say R.A. Salvatore, I can't remember, but that's just going to feel too much like a lot of the fantasy stuff that's already out there. So I don't really have any off the top of my head that I would think of. Chris, do you have any that you would like to see that's never been done?
There's always kind of Hyperion and Stranger in a Strangeland bouncing around in my head, but I love those books so much that I don't know if they'd be done, if they were done well though, like they're prompting. I'd love to see Stranger in a Strangeland as a movie. That book's wild. It's great. Highland's amazing.
All right, what's next?
From Mark24 Gaming, Kraven's powers came from lion's blood. Morbius got powers from bats. Who do you think is next to receive a similar origin?
Spider-Man. Oh, no, wait, that already happened. Spider got Spider-Man from Spider-Man.
We see Rhino doing something hinky in the trailer.
Yeah, Rhino. So I don't know, like, was there a lion and a rhino that got caught in a radioactive crater from a meteor that struck in the heart of Africa? And then that rhino eventually bled into rhino, and that lion bled into Kraven. And that's, I mean, I don't know. But this whole Spider-Verse thing, that Spider-Man got bit by a spider. Venom or Kraven got his thing from blood from a lion. I mean, I don't know. See, I really do like the trailer. I think the trailer looks bonkers fun, but a lot of red flags.
You know who would get screwed? Someone who gets bit by a dog. They'll just be loyal to everyone and just like licking everybody.
Licking their own balls.
Or just get rabies.
Scorpion. They could bring in Scorpion.
No, zebra. If you ever, there's a great
zebra kick.
There's this great fake nature documentary on zebras that are it's basically a whole 10-minute thing about why it really sucks to be a zebra.
Oh,
yeah, because they get eaten.
Nothing good about being a zebra. Yeah. It was pretty funny. All right, what's next?
From Ulatan. Did definitive action stars like Schwarzenegger and Stallone peak in the 80s? How do current action stars like The Rock and Hemsworth compare? And do you see anyone coming up who could be the next action hero?
The age of the action star is gone. Now it's just stars, right? Like the age of Van Damme and Stallone and obviously a Schwarzenegger, and there are a number of others as well. But I mean, Jason Statham, I guess, is kind of one of the last few true action stars. But like guys like Hemsworth, that's a dude who could also conceivably one day have an Oscar on his mantle. I mean, he's just a great actor, period. He's great. He's good in action stuff, but he's not just a pure action hero. So I don't know if that day, again, I've been saying this for like 8 years. Statham and Dwayne Johnson are kind of it right now. So I don't know that we're going to see. Movie audiences today want their action stars to actually be able to act a little bit. And back in the day, listen, when Schwarzenegger says, "Sully, I'm going to kill you last." I mean, they weren't handing him SAG awards at that point. But I don't know if the age of the action star is ever going to come back. All right, what's next?
From Dr. Stinky. Hey again, I want Sony to sneak in a cameo of some sort where they jump through different universes and see Stan Lee and Steve Ditko working on 1960s Marvel comics and Beyond the Spider-Verse. I don't know. That'd be a cool cameo thing. Bring on the filthy.
I can see something like that happening in the Spider-Verse cartoons.
But will they be working in a harmonious way, or will we be getting the dirt?
Yeah. And, would it... Well, I was going to say something, but I won't. Here's the thing. About cameos, in some like a Spider-Verse movie, maybe because it's animated and it's more chaotic. I don't like cameos that are just there for the sake of cameos. I like cameos that actually further the story. And there have been some really good examples lately of a great cameo that actually pushes the story forward. Like it's there for a narrative purpose, not just, hey, everybody, look, remember them? Okay, cool. What's that there for? No reason. And then just move on. Hey, if they could actually fit that into the narrative of a Spider-Verse film, I'm all for it. But I think it would have to have a purpose and not just be there for the sake of being there. All right, what's next?
From Adrenaline Night. Hello, John and gang. How much credit should we give to who decides when movies come out? I think these last 4 weeks have been great, but spread out a little more. Maybe could have been made more.
They could have
made more.
Yeah.
Okay. Example, Mario.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think Mario's going to make that money no matter where you dropped it. I think it might have actually made a little bit more money if you dropped it in the Christmas holiday season. Listen, the people who decide when a movie is released is the distributors. The distributors have total control over a movie once it's made. They decide when it's going to be released in theaters, how it's marketed, where it goes for streaming when it comes time for streaming. Does it go to Netflix? Does it go to HBO Max? Like they make all those decisions. After a movie's done, it's all up to the distributors. Here's the problem. The Flash didn't only open up to $55 million because of when it opened. Mm-hmm. Like if another movie had opened and was in theaters that made like $150 million that weekend, then maybe you could say that was the case. But the fact of the matter is that at $55 million, it was the number one movie at the weekend. And the movie that opened against it, Elemental, which is great, by the way, only made like $25 million. So even if Flash made every one of those dimes that Elemental made and took all of that money, it still would have been considered a little bit underwhelming. So I don't know that it would have made a lot of difference. Look, when you release a movie is pretty key. Certain movies will play better at certain times. You want to find a favorite place in a release schedule. But hey, listen, we're in summer. We're like the kids are getting ready to go off school, all that kind of stuff. There is a lot of potential box office money to go around. Money is there to be made if people want to go see your movie. And if people don't want to see your movie in June, they didn't want to see your movie in September either.
They should have opened that up against Quantumania.
They probably would have done better.
Yeah, because they'd be like, no, you want to see Quantumania? Flash is really
Flash
good.
is better. Flash is better.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right, what's next?
From Kane Carnage. Hey, John and crew. Whether you're excited or not for the One Piece live action, it looks like the teaser trailer has gotten the second most views out of anything that came out of only behind Gal Gadot's Heart of Stone. The buzz in the community is very positive. For something so hard to adapt, I'm very happy with what we saw.
I'm not gonna pander. I didn't see it. I don't care about it. I know nothing about it.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
So
I knew you would, though.
Yeah.
That's why I don't need to pander. So
it's one of those things where I understand the criticisms of it. It is such a hard piece to adapt.
it's a live action thing, right?
It's a live action thing, and this works so well in manga and anime because it's so wacky. The characters eat devil fruit, and it can make their limbs stretch out and do all kinds of stuff too. They include it in the trailer as well. People always the best fighters yell out their finisher moves because in an anime or in a manga, they're always yelling out their attacks. So it is at least kind of doing these kind of winks and nudge to the medium and everything. I don't know if it's going to work really great as a live action. I think it's way more stylized than most anime, so it's a trickier sell. The set pieces I think look really great because those are practical, but yeah, I completely understand people's criticisms. I'm going to give it a shot, though. I like One Piece.
Is it set up, because I don't know anything about One Piece at all, but just all the stuff I'm hearing, is it set up to unfortunately be the next Cowboy Bebop, or do you think it can avoid the pitfalls that faced?
I feel like it's leaning harder into the stylization than Cowboy Bebop did. I personally, and I get so much shit for it, the Cowboy Bebop adaptation was not as heinous as everyone makes it out to be, in my opinion. It does not negate the original anime, which is one of my favorite things ever.
I didn't mind the Cowboy Bebop thing.
I think there's moments where it's, this doesn't work. But overall, I think it was fairly successful. I think a lot of people went into that angry that it wasn't the anime, which if that's what you want, go watch that. It's great. I got my copy signed by Steve Bloom on my mantle. I love it so much. I've got a shrine to it. But if you go into it wanting a shot-for-shot remake of the show you love so much, you're not going to have a good time because it's a different medium. I think this stands a higher chance of both polarizing people because it's going to be so stylized. But I also think that it probably will ring truer to the actual antics of the anime.
All right. What's next?
From Stefan, 2023 is almost halfway done. Yikes. Will you make a video ranking your top 10 movies of the year so far?
Yeah, I've done that a few times, that once you get to the middle of the year saying where we're at so far. Now, generally speaking, the best movies of the year tend to come in the second half of the year. But yeah, I think once we get to the end of June, because that'll be the halfway point, right? No, wait a second. January, February, March, April, May, June. Yes, end of June is the midway point. Yeah, I think we're going to do a best of and worst of the year so far a video once we get there. So I think I'm going to do that. All right, what's next?
From Ariel. Hey, John and the crew. So I just saw Flash and I really enjoyed it. My question is, do you think Sasha Calle is going to have a big career in film?
It's impossible to say.
I hope so.
I hope so,
I mean,
too.
I loved her in this movie. I would love to see her do more. Unfortunately, she's going to carry around some baggage of she was in a big comic book movie flop with The Flash. I mean, we'll see what kind of legs the movie has, but and again, I say this as somebody who loves the film, but it's going to be a flop, and she's going to have to carry that around with her. And I don't know that being in The Flash is going to be helpful for her career moving forward. I just don't know. I hope so. I also can't say that I think she's a terrific actress because I've only seen her in this. It's tough to ever say how good or not good you think somebody's in when you've only seen them in one thing, unless that one thing happens to be Shakespeare. But it's hard to say. All right, what's next?
From Ulatan. Is it just me? Tom Holland is approaching 10 years playing Spider-Man, but for some reason, his iteration still feels fresher than Tobey and Andrew's during their times as Spidey.
It may feel that way now because Andrew and Tobey's are decades old now. So it might feel that way. But yeah, listen, I have loved Tom Holland's iteration of Spider-Man. I've liked every single one of the standalone movies. I've loved him in Civil War. I loved him in Infinity War. I just think he's a great, wonderful character. Now, Andrews is still my favorite, but I think Tom Holland has been fantastic, and I'm all for him continuing to play this role for another 10 years. All right, what's next?
From Mattia. Hey, John, since the new Mission Impossible movie is coming out, I kind of want to watch it, except I never saw a Mission Impossible movie. A friend told me I should skip the second or third movie. What do you think? And bring on the filthy.
I honestly think you can start by watching 5. I really do. Again, not that there's anything wrong with 4 or 3. A lot of people like 2 and 1. I'm not a huge fan of the earlier ones, but I honestly really think you can just sit down, pop in 5 and 6, and I think you'll be good to go. I mean, if you got a little more time, maybe even start at 4. But honestly, you'll be able to jump right in, and you won't have a problem. All right, what's next?
Oop, this one.
From Mr. Hank Dunn. Is there a way to stay more updated on the writer's strike? I have no clue if there's any movement on it getting resolved.
Not unless you're one of the, negotiating members. But has negotiations even started happening again? Because
They're still in them.
They're still in because I
they're still
remember
striking at least.
the AMPTP just basically wouldn't even negotiate for a while. So I don't know. Have they gotten back to talking?
I don't think they're actually having proper negotiations, but they are still striking, which we're coming up on week 8 almost.
What was the last big one in 08? Was that 12 weeks?
That was 3 months.
Yeah.
3 months, yep.
You can follow all of this, though, too, online. The WGA has a very strong social media presence showing everything. Stephen Colbert, they did a great little segment of him giving out his Americone dream out in New York with all the protesters there, giving out scoops to folks. But you can stay involved with Twitter, with Instagram by following the WGA themselves, by following the hashtag WGA Writers' Strike. And then also the Entertainment Fund is a really great place to look and also offer your support. You can get shirts, you can donate money directly, and that money goes into the Entertainment Fund, which helps writers who are struggling to pay rent, health insurance, all that kind of stuff. Actors Union also kind of blends into that as well.
It's going to be very interesting to see because we're getting close to June 30th, which is when the SAG contract expires.
Yep.
So we're either going to have a new deal like the DGA had or a strike like the WGA is. And I think one of two things can happen. If SAG reaches a deal before the 30th, I think you're going to see the WGA. I mean, they'll say all the right things, but I think you're going to see the WGA really pressured to somehow, some way, maybe do more compromises and reach a deal. If SAG goes on strike, flips the tables. I think the WGA and SAG will then be in a much stronger position to get what they want as well. So again, I think it all comes down to what happens with the SAG negotiations.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
It's going to really make things tenuous between SAG-AFTRA and the WGA, though, if we accept a deal. I think that's going to really,
But I mean, the WGA is just, look, I mean, I don't know if you saw my community tab the other day. I am very, while I try to be as objective as I can, and I always try to look at things from both sides, I am clearly, obviously leaning towards the writers on this. That said, the writers, if the actors reach a deal, the SAG's union's responsibility is not to the WGA
to the actors.
members.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's their responsibility is to SAG members. And if they can get a deal that is good for SAG members,
They will.
they got to do it.
That's what, Crabtree Ireland has been talking about that. Our chief negotiator has been talking about that ad nauseum of how the deal that we're looking for is one that benefits our union specifically. That said, though, our demands are so closely tied to the exact kind of numbers that
Right.
the WGA is looking at that I would honestly question what the MTPT is doing if we get a deal, if the WGA is getting a deal, and they're still doing this to the writers because it's that basic residual, basic AI kind of stuff. It's really interesting.
All right, what's next?
From CJ Rebirth, even though she didn't have much screen time overall in the Fox X-Men films, I did love Anna Paquin as Rogue and the friendship she had with Logan.
I love Anna Paquin.
Quite a bit of screen time in those movies.
She, correct me if I'm wrong, is she not the youngest Academy Award winner for an actress?
I don't know if she still is.
'Cause I remember Quavagine Wallace was the youngest ever nominated, I think, but I can't help but wonder if Anna was the youngest to win. And anyway, do you know, she had a show, and I think it was on Amazon. Anna Paquin got a show where it was kind of like Entourage, but she was a Hollywood fixer. where like she was an agent that when all these celebrities would get in trouble, she would have to be the one to fix the problem. It was on like 2 years ago. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember I watched a bunch of the first season. And I really liked what I saw. I just adore Anna Paquin. I would love to see her return as Rogue. I thought they should have used her more, but then again, there were so many characters in that X-Men world. I thought all of them should have been used more. Like I thought, well, definitely the most misused character was James Marsden's Cyclops. That was easily, as much as I love the X-Men films, that was the most misused character, but I thought they could have done with more of that back one. By the way, Ray, I watched The Jury, or The Juror. Or
Jury Duty.
Jury Duty. I watched Jury Duty.
With James Marsden.
It was James Marsden. That was a funny show.
Did you finish it?
I did.
Did you and Ann finish it?
I did. Yeah, and I finished it.
Couldn't they pick the sweetest guy?
They picked the best guy.
He deserves everything he's getting.
Yeah, he does.
He's such a good dude.
Have you seen his social media, by the way?
Oh, no, I haven't.
Blew up. Complete. His social media is like
because
massive now.
There's so
but now
many
he's going to become an
times.
influencer and suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now he's going to become an asshole because he's a big social media influencer.
In that show, there's so many times where I was like, I would do this, and he just stayed the same. You know, like
The funniest part to me, though, was the toilet.
Oh yeah, no. I like the part where he was helping two of the
couple.
Yeah,
Helping
We'll
the
just
couple.
Leave it as that.
Yeah, just leave it at that. That was James
funny.
Marsden is great in this. All right, we got time for just a couple more. What's next?
Anna Paquin was 11, by the way. Tatum O'Neal was 10 when she
Yeah,
won.
Tatum
So Tatum
Oh.
O'Neal still holds the
Okay,
record
there you
for
go.
Paper Moon.
Still.
Mighty Tank 1. Game day.
Game day.
Secret Invasion tonight.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. It's the first episode. Is usually awesome, but we'll see how the rest of it goes. No spoilers, John.
The ending of the first episode.
Also, Oppenheimer is not tonight.
It's not tonight. No. You missed it yesterday, Ray. We were doing the live
like,
stream
"Game
yesterday,
day."
and he said, and also tomorrow. What was it? Yeah,
Open mic,
tomorrow's
something.
Open mic is tomorrow. And Ray said, speaking of open, tomorrow's Oppenheimer. I'm like, no, that's the wrong month.
You see, okay, there's a new rule. If you guys are going to add a ticket to my A-list, make sure it's within the month that it comes out, because I just assumed, it's the 20th of this month. I never bothered to look at it.
But then that means they have to wait a month to buy their tickets.
By the way, super excited. Speaking of tickets, I got to add to your thing.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
No Hard Feelings opens this week. I'm really excited for that movie. I've seen a couple of really good comedies lately, and it's been a while since we've seen a succession of really good comedies. And I think this movie looks like a ball. I can't wait to see this.
And I guess I'm really excited for this movie. Since
Yes.
it's
Are you?
added to my
Are you?
A-list now.
Yeah.
It feels
I mean, it's
like
a comedy. I think
Yeah,
you like
it
it.
looks good.
It feels like an early 2000s comedy from the trailer. My only issue,
What I like.
my only issue though right now is if the genders were reversed, people would be like, "This is disgusting," and I hate this, and this is so inappropriate.
Well, I mean-
so I'm hoping that it plays out better than what.
That's
the
what I'm going
trailer
to say,
looks.
right? I understand this is just a trailer,
Yeah.
right? We're going to see, how this actually plays out. But you know,
Yeah.
listen. So Ray's a lot of people misunderstand what Ray's job is here at the company. Ray's job is actually not to be a commentator. That's why he
Yeah.
doesn't actually chime in all that much.
Yeah.
Ray's job here is he works like 8+ hours a day doing all the production stuff, and like from graphics, editing, rendering, dealing with the podcast, dealing with like all that stuff behind the scenes. But since that is primarily his job, what takes up all of his time, I did finally say, look, we are a movie outfit. So I bought Ray an AMC A-list. And I said, part of the gig now is going to be, you got to start coming to more
Yeah.
movies with us. You got to start coming to more movies.
Not
I'll
just the
see a
moon
thing
ones.
pop up and be like, I added-
Oppenheimer's opening. No, that's next month.
No, it's been fine, because this year has been great. Honestly, like all the movies I've seen this year. But you might end that streak with this comedy. I'm just telling you, there's a big risk.
I think this is going to be really good.
It looks good to me, but I'm saying,
Yeah, could bring the streak to an end.
yeah, it could bring the streak to an end. I wanted to ride it into Oppenheimer, which should have been opening tonight, I think. But it's next month.
Not tonight.
Dang, I was
All
so
right.
excited.
Let's do two more. What's next?
From Augustine, I talked to Andy Muschietti, and he told me that the Speed Force happens in the Polar Express universe. That's why it looked like that. On a serious note, I really liked the movie.
Yeah, I did too. But you know, the more and more I watched it again the other night, because before I saw it for the second time, Chris, you and I were talking the other day about how what they really should have done in the Speed Force is increase the amount of stylization of the visuals to make it more clear. And then we went to go see it, and it's like, yeah, if you're looking at these scenes and thinking that this is supposed to look real, then yeah, you're going to walk going, what the hell was that? I think I am more convinced than ever that they should have over stylized it to make it a lot more clear.
They were at ludicrous speed and they needed to go full plaid.
Yeah. Jonathan pointed out that really they should have, what they seemed to be going for in the Speed Force was these were more avatars of the characters.
Yeah.
And they should have probably leaned more into that, I think. Anyway. All right. Last one of the day. What do we got next?
From Jesse Has a Turtle. Why does Rotten Tomatoes feel the need to separate critics and audience scores and not just have a universal consensus on the movie instead?
Oh, because that would be stupid.
Jesse has a turtle. Not that your question is.
No, you are not stupid, and the question is not stupid. I'm saying the answer to the question is because that would be stupid. Because look, if I'm buying a new tablet, right? I want to know the reviews I'm reading, are these people who engage with, interact with, and it's their job to dissect and go into this technology all the time. I want to hear their point of view. And then I also want to hear from people who bought the tablet. Like I also want to hear from them, but I keep those as two separate things, right? It's great to read a thing from a mom in Toledo who this is the first tablet she's ever owned in her life to say, I think this is wonderful because the recipes on it look great. That's wonderful. That's good. That is actually useful to me. But I also want to hear from the guy at Engadget or The Verge who interacts with hundreds of tablets all the time and give me their perspective from it as well. And I want to be able to keep those separate. They both have their value. They both have their role, but I want to keep them separate. When I'm reading a movie review, let's say of a comic book movie, I want on one hand, people who go to all the comic book movies, and that's pretty much all they watch is comic book movies. They don't go to see the biopics or the period pieces or the whatever, but they just watch comic book movies. And yeah, I want to hear from them. I want to hear from average viewers and whatever, what they thought of something that they just go to watch anyway. But I also want to hear in a separate context from people whose job it is to see biopics and period pieces and dramas and horrors and, the Oscar bait movies as well as the lower brow comedy. I want to hear from people whose job it is to watch hundreds of films every year and hear their perspective. And I don't think I want to have that guy's perspective mixed in with Gordon, who've watched 5 movies this year, and all of them are either comic book or fantasy movies.
Sorry, Gordon.
And, but again, both have their value, both have their place, but they need to be looked at separately and taken as such.
And if you want to put them together, you literally could just do the math on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah. You can just add up the total of those that are critics rotten fresh and those of the audience rotten fresh and do the math yourself. If that's what you really want to do,
it's a big
you could just
step.
do that.
It is a lot of math though, because then you got to juxtapose and extrapolate the number of critics versus the number of audience.
Well, no, you would just take all the positives and all the negatives, and that's your entire audience.
People should do more math too.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Yes, people should be doing more math in general. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to our channel members who sent in those topics. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, by being YouTube channel members, you actually supported our show. And from all of us here involved, thank you so much for your support. Hey guys, a couple of things to remind you about. If you happen to be engaging with this podcast on our YouTube channel, maybe the better way is to just actually go and subscribe to the podcast on either Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. By the way, we have a video version of this show on Spotify you can check out there, or any of your favorite podcasting apps of choice. Also, we have a newsletter that we send out almost every morning that outlines some announcements as well as the topics we're going to be covering that day on the podcast and on the YouTube channel, a little blog entry by myself. If you look down to the description, you're going to find a link to where you can go and subscribe to our newsletter. It's free, and you can go check it out there. All right, so for everybody in the room, Ray Ora,
Yeah.
Jonathan Voico,
See ya.
Chris Carr.
Bye, guys.
My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.